Hello and welcome back, Focus Learners. If you're looking to absolutely master some core plant biology concepts today, well, you are in the exact right place. We are putting two evolutionary heavyweights head to head. We're going to break down the key characteristics, the major evolutionary advancements, and the critical differences between gymnosperms and angiosperms. We're going to make sure you are perfectly prepped for any examinable questions that come your way. Okay, let's dive into this. What actually makes flowering plants the absolute most successful group of plants on Earth today? It's a massive question, right? But by the end of this explainer, the brilliant evolutionary strategies they've developed will be crystal clear to you. This is a core concept that examiners absolutely love to test, so keep this question in the back of your mind as we go. Here's our quick roadmap. We'll start with the plant family tree, meet the gymnosperms, and then meet the angiosperms. After that, we'll do a side-by-side comparison, and finally, put a big focus on flowers. All right, Section 1, the plant family tree. So evolution is a gradual process, right? It causes characteristics in a population to change over many successive generations. If you look at the common ancestor labeled E at the very bottom of this branching tree, you'll see that while there are so many different plant species on Earth today, they're all said to have emerged from simple unicellular algae. From that one single point of origin, plants gradually adapted and diversified. And that diversification led us to four main groups of plants. First up came the bryophytes, which are your non-vascular land plants, like mosses. Then came the pteridophytes, the seedless vascular plants, like ferns. Now notice how both of these early groups still rely heavily on water for reproduction. But then evolution made a massive leap. It gave rise to the gymnosperms and angiosperms. The crucial takeaway for your exams here is that these two advanced groups developed highly specialized traits, like pollen and seeds. This means they no longer rely on water for reproduction. They were literally built to conquer dry land. Okay, moving right along to Section 2, meet the gymnosperms. And this brilliantly illustrates our first major category. Take this classic pine cone, for example. The gymnosperm family encompasses conifers, cycads, the ancient ginkgo biloba, and of course your standard pine trees. The defining characteristic of gymnosperms, and fun fact, the name literally translates to naked seeds, is exactly that. Their seeds are completely exposed, rather than being protected inside a fruit. Let's look at the critical examinable features you absolutely need to memorize. Gymnosperms typically feature true roots, a woody stem, and needle-shaped leaves. They possess proper vascular tissue, so that's your xylem and phloem, for transporting water and nutrients. Their sporophyte generation is dominant. But here is the major testing point, their reproduction. Gymnosperms reproduce using cones. They have male cones, which are generally smaller, grow in little groups, and carry the pollen grains. Then they have female cones, which are larger and carry the ovary. Because they don't have flowers, their seeds are simply spread by the wind. Section 3. Meet the angiosperms. Now, when you hear the word angiosperm, I want you to immediately think of flowering plants. Take this stunning bird of paradise, for instance. This group made a monumental evolutionary leap. Instead of leaving their seeds exposed on a cone, angiosperms produce flowers and they enclose their developing seeds safely within a fruit. It's a total game changer. Let's outline their core takeaways. Similar to gymnosperms, angiosperms have true roots, stems, and leaves. Their sporophyte generation is dominant, and they possess that all-important vascular tissue. However, they produce male and female spores inside flowers, not cones. And the defining difference you need to know? Their seeds develop within a fruit. Plus, while gymnosperms rely almost entirely on the wind to spread their naked seeds, angiosperms can spread their fruit-enclosed seeds via wind, water, insects, and diverse animal pollinators. Again, neither group needs water for reproduction, which is a massive, massive terrestrial advantage. All right, Section 4, gymnosperms versus angiosperms. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer visual contrast, and I want you to pay close attention, because contrasting these two groups is a high-yield concept for your tests. On the left, you've got the rugged, woody pine cone of the gymnosperm, carrying those exposed, naked seeds. On the right, the vibrant, colorful flower of the angiosperm, which will eventually produce a fruit to protect its seeds. Really try to cement this visual in your memory because it represents millions of years of brilliant evolutionary strategy. Let's break this down into a quick comparison grid to make it incredibly easy to study. So the crucial point is knowing exactly where they're similar and where they differ. Do they both have vascular tissue? Yes. True leaves and roots? Yes. Do they both produce seeds and pollen, meaning they don't need water for fertilization? Yes. But here is where they diverge, and this is what you will be tested on. Fruit bearing. Gymnosperms produce naked seeds and do not bear fruit. Angiosperms produce flowers and absolutely do bear fruit. Which brings us to Section 5, Focus on Flowers. Because the structure of flowers is so heavily emphasized in testing, we really need to define the foundational botanical terms for the outside of the flower first. The outermost whorl is called the calyx, and it's made up of those green, leaf-like structures called sepals that protect the bud. Moving inward, we have the corolla, which is all the brightly colored petals combined. These are designed specifically to attract pollinators. Together, the calyx and the corolla are collectively known as the perianth, which is essentially just the non-reproductive protective envelope surrounding these sexual organs. Let's see how this builds into the actual reproductive mechanics. All the floral parts are attached to a thickened base called the receptacle. Now, look at the male part of the flower. This is called the stamen. Each stamen consists of a long stalk called a filament, topped by a bilobed anther where the pollen is actually produced. Then, we have the female part of the flower called the pistil. The pistil consists of a sticky stigma at the top to catch pollen, a long tube called the style, and the swollen base called the ovary, where the ovules are produced. So how does the actual fertilization happen? Well, here are the highly examinable steps. First, haploid pollen, or microspores, are produced by meiosis in the anther. When a pollinator or the wind brings that pollen grain to a flower, it lands right on the sticky stigma. The pollen then germinates, growing its tube all the way down the style, carrying the male gametes directly to fertilize the ovule inside the ovary. And here is the absolutely crucial point for your test. Post-fertilization, the ovule develops into the seed, and that entire ovary swells up and becomes the fleshy, often sweet layer we know as a fruit. Okay, let's make sure this is actually sticking. Here is a direct practice question pulled straight from the core concepts. Which of the following is not part of the pistil? Is it A, ovary, B, filament, C, stigma, or D, style? Think back to our breakdown. The pistil is the female organ, which means the correct answer is B, the filament. The filament is part of the male stamen. If you got that right, you are totally on track. To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this two-part provocative question straight from your study materials. First, why do pollinators visit flowers in the first place? And second, how did the evolution of these specific reproductive organs, the protected ovary, the attractive petals, the resulting fruit, make angiosperms the undisputed, most successful group of plants on Earth today? I really want you to think deeply about the energy spent on flowers versus the incredible evolutionary payoff of animal-assisted pollination and seed dispersal. Thank you so much for joining me on this focused biological deep dive. Keep reviewing those structures. Remember the difference between naked seeds and true fruits, and I will see you in the next explainer.